up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight is going to be movie and TV show content. For today's video, I am going to be discussing the 8 movies and 4 TV shows I watched in February. I'm just going to jump right into it because I have a lot to say. I just want to give you guys the disclaimer that for the movies, I'm going to try to kind of keep it short because one of the TV shows I want to talk about, usually when I write down notes for my outline, each movie gets about like 5 lines, maybe half a page if I have a lot to say. One of the TV shows, I have over 3.5 pages of notes. So that's a lot. The footage for this is going to be like 2 hours long, and I'm already dreading editing it. I have so much to say, and I don't want this video to be like 3 hours long. The first movie I watched in February is called The Novice. This is about a college student who joins the rowing team and she becomes absolutely obsessed to the point it's actually detrimental to her health. I watched this because Isabelle Fuhrman plays the lead. I have seen her in other movies. She's most famous for The Orphan or For Orphan. She's Clove in The Hunger Games, and she was advertising the hell out of this. So I went into this thinking it was going to be great. I didn't really think so. This movie is a victim of not being my type of movie. I don't really go towards like sports movies. If Isabelle Fuhrman wasn't in this, I would not have watched it. I understood her obsession. Like, I understand being obsessed with something, and watching her devolve into what she is by the end of the movie was fascinating in its own way. However, I am not a big sports person, so at the same time I was very bored and like didn't get it. I have my own obsession, so I do, like, I understand being obsessed with something, just not with sports, which is where it was kind of losing me. I mean, the acting was great for what it was, like credit where credit is due, but again, if Isabelle Fuhrman wasn't the lead, would not have watched this. 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched is a Best Picture nominee, and that is Maestro. This movie is about the life of Leonard Bernstein, who was a famous composer. What a film. I was expecting, let's be honest here, I was expecting Oscar bait, and by the end of this movie, talk about Oscar bait. Bradley Cooper really wants that Oscar, and like, I can't blame him. He's an actor. I'm sure every actor wants an Oscar, and I think he also directed this. He definitely did more than just acting. He put a lot of work into this movie, and it definitely shows with his acting skills. But I just really wasn't into this. Like, let's talk about the good things first. Like, for example, the acting. I think Bradley Cooper did a great job. I see why he was nominated in the very least. I'm filming this the day before the Oscars. I don't think he's going to win. I think that's going to Killian. But I think he did good. However, I also think Carey Mulligan acted circles around him. I could see her winning an Oscar for this before he does. I love the transition in this movie though. Every time I caught one, I like audibly gasped because it was so cool to watch. But my biggest complaint about this is that this movie is so long. It's like 2 hours long. But for a movie that's this long, I feel like I didn't really learn about Leonard Bernstein and what made him so great. In one scene, he's a beginner and like people don't know his name. And I swear to God, not even 5 minutes later, he's conducting for a sold-out audience and he's most known for West Side Story and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what happened in between that? Like, I feel like we saw the big moments of his life that everyone kind of already knew, but we didn't get to see the in-between, which is what I want from biopics. I want to learn things, you know, we didn't learn before. I want to learn what made him so great. Like, what was the behind the scenes of West Side Story? What was the behind the scenes of this opera he worked on? What was the behind the scenes of this radio station he was a part of? It did a lot of telling and not showing. And I guess going off of that, I would have loved to see more writing sequences, like again, like the behind the scenes of these famous operas he did. And I would have loved to see more conducting scenes. There was really only one. There was one major one, and then everything else was kind of very small. I mean, considering he's a conductor, I thought I would have seen more. And the final complaint is that it's just long and boring. Oh my God. As of now, I have seen all Best Picture nominees. I've seen all 10, and this is definitely my least favorite, if not the second to last least favorite. One of the two. So I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Next is The Creator. This is actually an Oscar-nominated film as well. This is nominated for Best Special Effects. This is about a man who lost his entire family, and now he has to hand over this, like, half human, half AI robot thing to some dude, to the creator, basically. This review I'm definitely not going to spend a lot of time on because it's long, boring, and forgettable. I honestly, like, this movie's like 2 hours long, and I honestly can't really tell you what I watched. I can't even tell you how. I know how it ended, but I can't even, like, imagine how it ended anymore. The special effects delivered, though. I could definitely see why this was nominated. They did a great job with the human AI thing. So it's like, I don't even want to call them uncanny. I feel like uncanny's an insult, and they're not uncanny. Like, they actually look real. So the special effects team ate this up. However, that couldn't really save this movie from my dislike, so I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched was actually a Best Picture winner from the past, and that is It Happened One Night. This is about a New York reporter and a rich lady running away from home who meet on a bus in New York, and then they get stranded together. I believe this is considered one of the first ever rom-coms, if not the first. And if you've been on this channel for a while, you kind of know my views on rom-coms. They're very hit or miss for me, but I actually thought this one was okay. This one was middle of the road. Like, I didn't hate it by any means, but it's not, like, great. I thought it was cute, just very long. But it definitely did have its funny moments, especially when they were trying to hail a taxi, because I remember the girl had basically used, like, her feminine prowess to get one because Clark Gable's thumbs up wasn't working. And speaking of Clark Gable, that man is so hot. He's so attractive, and I can't wait to get to Gone with the Wind one day because he's Rhett Butler, and I loved Rhett Butler when reading the book. Ooh, it's gonna be a good time watching that. But I ended up giving this movie 3 out of 5 stars. Funny enough, I actually meant to react to this. I did. I filmed a reaction to this, and I'm so pissed because the file ended up being corrupted, and I was so mad. I went to edit it. I was ready to go. I had a full day open, and it was gone. That's why I meant to react to like 3 Best Picture winners, and I only got to react to 1 this season. Technically 2, just 1 wasn't able to come out, and I'm still upset about it. The next movie I watched in theaters. This is actually the only one I watched in theaters, and that is Lisa Frankenstein. This takes place in the 80s, and it's about a girl who's a misfit. She's by herself a lot. She's grieving the loss of her mother, and then one day a dead guy comes to life, and they fall in love. And let me tell you, this movie, I thought it was so goofy. I thought the trailers were so goofy, but I had to watch it because 1, it looked like a fun, campy movie, and 2, it's directed by Zelda Williams, or aka Robin Williams' daughter, so I was intrigued by that. I took myself on a date for Valentine's Day because your girl is single, and I was not the only one who was by themselves. A lot of us were there on self-dates. I went in expecting like a 3 out of 5 star movie, like a campy, good time. But this, like, I don't know, it just exceeded my expectations, and I had so much fun. The 80s vibes are definitely in this movie, and I loved everything about it. I loved the music, the makeup, the fashion. The lead character's fashion's immaculate. The whole aesthetic is great, and the acting's great too. Like, I love the lead actress. Cole Sprouse plays the, like, Frankenstein monster, and he did a good job with that, especially in the beginning when he was more monster than human. That's part of the arc. He kind of becomes more human as the movie goes on. Carla Gugino does such a good job at playing, like, one of the worst stepmoms you will ever meet. Ooh, I was so mad watching her. And this movie is just genuinely funny. I was actually laughing aloud in the theater. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I do recommend this movie. Just go into it not expecting to take it seriously, because this movie doesn't take itself seriously, and you'll have a great time. That's actually what makes this movie so great. It's not serious at all. You're not supposed to take it seriously, and the movie itself is very self-aware. So keep that in mind, and I think you'll have a great time. 5 out of 5 stars. I'm spinning. The next movie I watched is a movie I was able to react and upload, and that is 1941's How Green Was My Valley. This movie is about a family in Wales. They are a family of coal miners. They want better for the youngest brother, but it still explores their lives from there. That's what it's about on the surface, but I felt like when you dig deep into it, it's more so like a commentary on the working class and how the upper class treats them and their struggles, and also the topic of hypocrisy. Again, I reacted to this, so I do want to keep this as brief as I possibly can. But just to summarize my thoughts, this movie has beautiful cinematography. Each frame was just stunning, especially when they show like the field of Wales, and I've been to Wales, so I've seen these fields, and I think the movie captures them magnificently. And the acting in this movie is insane in like the best way possible. The kid who plays Hugh is one of the best child actors I've ever come across. The standout to me though was the mom, especially in the end. She doesn't say anything, all the acting is just in her eyes. I have never seen someone look so defeated and grief-stricken. Like, I actually cried. I was bawling for her by the end of the movie. And I don't know if she won an award for that, but she definitely won an award in my heart, because if you could just act with your eyes like that, I think that's amazing. Like, a modern example is Cillian Murphy at the end of Oppenheimer. Like, something like that, you deserve all the awards. I ended up giving this movie 4.5 out of 5 stars. So the next movie I watched is Rustin, which has the Best Actor nomination for Colman Domingo. So this is a biopic. It's based on the true story of Rustin, who's, oh my god, I can't remember his first name. But he led the biggest peaceful demonstration, protest, whatever you want to call it, in Washington, D.C. during Martin Luther King's Day. I actually think it's still the biggest to this day. I actually don't have a lot to say about this movie at all, just because as a movie, I think what the man did in real life is amazing, and I learned a lot about him in this biopic, but I think as a movie, it was just okay. I feel like some scenes were very gripping, some scenes were very fun, like this, he seemed like a very fun guy. But I feel like other scenes in the movie just lacked a bit. It was kind of wishy-washy for me personally watching this. But I will say Colman Domingo is a very engaging actor, and I could definitely see why he got nominated. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. And the last movie I watched in February is another Best Picture nominee, and that is The Holdovers. This is about a high school student who has to stay behind for Christmas break, and he is stuck with one of his teachers. I remember when this was in theaters for the Christmas season, because it is a Christmas movie, and I avoided it like the plague. Like, I had no interest in watching this, and I only watched it this year because it's a nominee. But this was a lot cuter than I thought it would be. Like, something about it was just so enjoyable. It's a really fun and engaging and heartfelt story about two people who kind of start out as, like, not good people. Like, both of them have very strong egos, to say the least. Both the student and the teacher aren't very well liked by their peers. And it was just fun watching these two unintentionally better themselves. Like, that wasn't their goal, but by the end of the movie, they were basically allies. They were pals. I was shocked to find out that this is Dominic Sessa's debut. Dominic Sessa plays the teenager. He does such a good job throughout this entire movie. His delivery is always on point. He was always sad and angry when he needed to be, and then any scene that called for a funny joke, he always landed it. And not only that, but if you look at the guy, like, he looks like he's from the 70s, because this movie takes place in the 70s. So obviously for this specific movie, like, hair and makeup and costuming has a part in that. But if you, like, see him, like, look up interviews of him for Oscars, and, you know, even dressed in modern clothing, I don't know what it is about his face, but, like, you ever see an actor in a period piece and you're like, like, he looks like he's seen an iPhone. Like, I can't believe this is the 1800s. Like, something about this guy where he looks like he walked straight out of a photo taken in the 1970s. I don't know how to describe it in any other way, but, like, there's just some people who don't have a modern face, and he's one of them. Divine Joy Randolph's also in this film, and I heard she was sweeping the Best Supporting Actress awards and all the other award shows, and I could definitely see why, because she stole the show in every scene she was in. She's the one person who got me to cry in this movie. This was a cute, feel-good film, and in the end I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. A very high 3 out of 5, to the point I'm tempted to actually raise the rating. And now let's move on to the TV shows. So like I said, I watched 4 TV shows in February. One I completed a season of, because I started in January, and the other 2 I started in February, but they're currently ongoing. So let's discuss the one I completed. It's 1 season with 8 episodes, and oh boy, my fucking god. So that is going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action TV show. If you don't know what this show is about, Avatar: The Last Airbender takes place in a world where people can bend one of the 4 elements: water, earth, fire, or air. Bending means they're just manipulating it with their minds. And the Avatar is someone who can bend all 4 elements. He's basically like the superhero of the universe. He brings balance, he or she brings balance to the world. And in this timeline, the Fire Nation has reigned supreme for 100 years. They're colonizing, destroying everyone. There was a whole genocide, hence The Last Airbender in the title. And our main character, Aang, the last Airbender, needs to defeat the Fire Lord in order to end the 100-year war. That took me like 6 takes, and I stuttered at one point. I'm not retaking that. And y'all, if you've been here for a while, you know I love the OG Nickelodeon show. I watched it for the first time when I was 12 years old, and I have not shut the fuck up since. So when this was announced, I had a lot of mixed feelings about it, just because I'm a hater of live action adaptations. I feel like there's this weird stigma in studios where like animation's not proper cinema, not proper art. So in order to make it better and more valid, they have to do a live action adaptation. So when this was first announced, I wasn't really for it, and then a lot of reviews were coming out, because I know at the premiere, like, a lot of people got to see the first episode, and the reviews were really, really positive, which shocked me, because usually people hate live action adaptations of things. The only one I've ever seen get positive reviews for before was the One Piece adaptation. So when I saw the positive reviews, I got a little more excited, and the trailers that were coming out, I was like, okay, these are kind of bangers. Like the character pictures that were coming out, I really liked those too. I really liked the casting as they were announcing them, because I thought visually everyone fit the character they were casted as. So I went into this with like kind of low expectations, hesitant expectations, I should say. And I wanted to like this so bad, but unfortunately, this was fucking crap. I hated this so much. I'm banging my notebook. Fair warning, this is the show I have 3 pages of notes on. I have so much to say because I was so upset with how this turned out. And oh my god, it's already been renewed for 2 more seasons. I can believe it, because I knew it was coming. It was getting the advertisement was getting the Stranger Things treatment. But there's a lot better out there that should not only be 1 season and unfortunately got canceled. But let me review this. Let me review this before I ramble a bit. I'm going to separate this review into 2 different sections. First, I want to talk about it as its own thing, and then I want to talk about it as an adaptation. Because quite frankly, I hate this. I despise this as an adaptation. But I was kind of hoping as its own thing I would have more positive things to say. Olivia Savannah just messaged me because I was telling her about my opinions on this. Let me take a picture so she knows I'm filming. Okay, so as its own thing, girl, I don't even know where to fucking begin. The number 1 reason I don't like this as its own thing, because just looking at it from a writer's perspective, and just from like an artistic perspective as someone who reads a lot, who consumes a lot of stories, the writing of this show is terrible. It's shockingly bad, actually. My first point of that is just the god-awful exposition. There were so many times in this TV show where a character would just go on a monologue telling the audience things in order to explain the lore. Things would be in motion and all of a sudden a character would just stop and give us a story. Like there was one point where Gran just paused and looked wistfully into the distance as she recited the original opening of the show, and it was just so awkwardly placed and awkwardly delivered. I had a hard time with that. And that's just one example, but speaking about the show generally, it had a problem with show don't tell, because we always say that show don't tell, whereas this show did the opposite. It was so much telling with very little showing. And we were often told things about characters but not shown that. Like they made a point like multiple times to say Aang is a very goofy kid, but we never got to see the goofiness throughout the show. He had maybe like a split second with the Kyoshi Warriors, and like that was it. Otherwise he was very, very solemn, very subdued almost throughout the entire show, and not funny, not goofy. So it's like, what were you guys talking about at first? The pacing of the show is way too fast. It is also god-awful, and to the detriment of character development. Character development kind of goes back to what I was saying, where we were told things about characters but not shown. But they're still just, like, I felt like by the end of the season, these characters didn't grow. I mean, like, yes, obviously they're not going to grow into what we know of by the end of the Avatar OG show, but, like, there was still development between Aang and his friends, from the first episode of season 1 to episode 22 of season 1. There was still that change, and I feel like I didn't get it for most of these characters. Maybe Aang, because he kind of accepted the Avatar role more so by the end, but not a lot. Slightly Katara, but I didn't really feel anything for Zuko and Sokka and like everyone else. Oh, and just like thinking, this is gonna happen a lot, you guys. I'm gonna be talking and then remember more and more, even though the notes are already way too long. But another thing I remembered when it comes to telling, not showing, like at the end of the season, Katara's like, I got to see the world because of you. They didn't really get to see a lot of the world, and I remember just laughing when she said that, because I was like, what world? You guys went to maybe like 2 spots. This show also has awful lighting during the like nighttime scenes. This is not a critique for this show specifically. This is just a critique at Netflix. They have a lot of their shows cannot light their nighttime scenes to save their lives. But the whole Air Nomad genocide scene, like people on Twitter were like, oh my god, it's so sad, I cried, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I mean, I probably would have felt the same if I could see what the fuck was happening. And you know what, I am going to comment on the costumes, which I have very mixed emotions about, because some of them ate. The Kyoshi Warriors looked so good. They looked they ate it up. They ate that shit up. They looked fantastic. But I had a problem, not like problems, but how do I word this? Fire Nation costumes looked okay, but Aang, Katara, and Sokka, and actually a lot of the Water Tribe, which I hate to say because I know natives worked on these costumes, but they looked like cosplay almost. Not to say the designs were terrible, like some of the Water Tribe designs, like especially like the coat Katara wears and like what Yue wears, some gorgeous outfits. They don't look like they're worn in. Like they don't look like clothes people wear. They like these actors look like they walked out of a cosplay convention. And the wigs, oh my god, some of those wigs were horrendous. Yue, what was that? It wasn't just her wig, like Roku's wig and his facial hair was weird. Iroh's, I'm getting nitpicky at this point, but like you could just tell they weren't real. On a good note though, I will say the makeup department, when it comes, like whoever worked on Boomy, y'all need a raise, because when I saw what that actor looks like out of costume, I was like, holy shit, I didn't even recognize him. So like for Boomy and then for Suki and the Kyoshi Warriors in general, y'all need a raise for that. Everything else we need some work. The visuals of the show, some of them were actually stunning. The Southern Air Temple looked gorgeous, and so did the Northern Water Tribe. Some of the other visuals had me questioning what the hell happened to that $120 million budget they had. I mean, the majority of it clearly went to that like ocean spirit at the end, because that was cool. That looked gorgeous. They ate that up. They did a really good job with that. For other scenes, I feel like they could have done a better job at hiding the fact these actors were surrounded by green screen. There's some scenes, especially when they're zoomed in on the actors' faces, where like you could almost see the outline. It's strange. I definitely feel like the allocation of this budget it's very obviously prioritizing other departments, and they didn't really do a good job hiding the fact it wasn't allocated in certain departments. And I have Momo on here as an example because he is fucking uncanny to look at. What was that? And the last point I want to talk about when it comes to this show as its own thing, and I'm going to use it to leeway into my thoughts of it as an adaptation, it goes back to the writing, specifically the exposition. Just the spoon feeding in this show was ridiculous. They spoon feed the audience like the morals and the points so much, to the point where it's like I feel like they don't trust us. Every episode, Aang goes on this little monologue about how he's the Avatar, he's disappointed people, so now he has to help them, and he's disappointed in himself that he couldn't do it. And it's like, dude, we got that in episode 1. You don't need to repeat it in episodes 7 and 8 and then everything else in between. And that's just one example. It's mind-boggling to me because this is supposedly for more mature audiences, but it's almost hard to believe because of all this exposition, the spoon-feeding, whatever the fuck you want to call it, because like, it's like you trust us less than the OG show made for 8 to 12-year-olds. And the future of movies, TV shows, storytelling in general worries me if shows for more mature audiences don't trust us enough to read between the lines. But like I said, I'm gonna use this as a leeway to talk about this as an adaptation, which I have a lot more to say. And I do want to talk about this as an adaptation because this pisses a lot of people on Twitter off, but I don't really care. I do think adaptations deserve to be compared to the things they were adapted from. And not only that, but the creators of this were trying to tell us that they made this show for the OG fans. So yeah, I'm gonna compare this to the thing I was originally a fan of. What really pissed me off was the changes to characterization. It wasn't so much the plot points, because some of the changes and plot points did make sense to me. I went into the show knowing they weren't gonna really do filler episodes, so when I saw that Katara has the scroll because Gran had it the whole time and not because of pirates, that made sense to me. Having Boomy plus the Freedom Fighters plus the Northern Air Temple people in one episode, that made sense to me. One change I actually did like was the Zuko squad thing and how he actually saved his squad. I actually thought that was well done. That's the one episode that got me. That's the only episode that made me cry. Because if you know me, I bawled my eyes out multiple times in the OG show. And I did actually appreciate the extra Gyatso content. Another thing I did like was episode 4 when we got to learn about Iroh and Lu Ten. I thought that funeral scene was very well done. I have a caveat to that though, but I will get to that. I like that they developed Suki and Sokka's future relationship. Obviously in season 1 of the OG show was going to be flat because Suki actually wasn't supposed to be a reoccurring character. They were never going to bring her back after the Kyoshi Warrior episode and only did because she was a fan favorite and they learned to like her. So knowing that, I do understand why they tried developing the romance early. And the Freedom Fighters, I was so impressed with them. Every single one looked great. And they all look like carbon copies of their animated counterparts, and it's actually a shame they didn't have more screen time. But now, unfortunately, we get to the things I hated, which again is mostly characterization. I feel like they butchered all these characters, and it's like, you claim you made the show for the OG fans. Why are you changing the characters I fell in love with? Because, you know, you bring this up online and people are like, oh, it's not supposed to be a 1v1 adaptation. It's like, no. You say that when it comes to the plot. Like I said, those plot changes make sense. But when you change the essence of a character, you're no longer making a show about Aang, Katara, and everyone else. You're making a show about brand new characters. When you take away their major character traits, that's what makes them who they are. So when they don't have them, that's not them anymore. Aang being the primest example. He's not a goofy kid. They tell us multiple times he's goofy, but they don't show us. In the OG show, they did. He shows, like, his introduction, he shows his godlike power just to wake up and be like, hey, do you want to go penguin sledding with me? And they go penguin sledding. His whole thing was that how he was avoiding his avatar duties. That's why he ran away. In this TV show, he's so serious. And he is so hell-bent on being the avatar the entire time. Like in the OG show, I think they just went to the Northern Water Tribe simply to learn waterbending. Whereas in this one, he has a vision from Avatar Kyoshi and he's like, oh my god, something bad's gonna happen. I have to go there and be the avatar. Which takes away from season 1 Aang, because season 1, he even explicitly says in the first season, he never wanted to be the avatar. That's why he ran away. And then in season 1, you see him be goofy and go on these little adventures because he's avoiding his duties. That's what makes him so great by the end of the season. He finally accepted it, turns into this ocean spirit, only for that to progress as the show goes on in seasons 2 and 3. Like, he's literally supposed to be cowardly because he's 12. And this new live action threw that away, so I can't imagine how that's going to be in seasons 2 and 3. Katara, my queen, she's way too meek in this. It's like jarring. Like this, she was, I feel like, the most different out of everyone. I miss my angry Katara. We really only got that in like the last 2 episodes when she was fighting with Pakku and kind of sort of Zuko. But she's also supposed to be motherly, which I didn't really get. And she is supposed to be kind of bossy. That's why her and Toph like get into it in season 2. So for this one, when they introduced Toph, I cannot imagine how that's gonna go. And she's just overall fierce and a leader and like very, very comfortable with herself, and I did not get that from this iteration. Sokka, my dude Sokka, he's not funny in this. I kind of got Sokka vibes in episodes 7 and 8 in the Northern Water Tribe when he meets Yue, but that's about it. I thought he was way too serious, and you know what? I am so fucking pissed they took away the sexism, because I think that by taking away his sexism, they take away from the other characters. He starts out sexist because he comes from a very patriarchal culture, but because of that, it's detrimental to Katara's character as well. Like, literally the whole reason they found Aang is because he said a sexist remark and pissed off Katara. In this show, for whatever reason, they're like, no, she's just gonna try to get a rowboat, but she waterbends wrong, so out comes the iceberg. Super fucking weird. Sokka's just sitting there watching, whereas in the TV show, he was kind of afraid of her because he knew Katara's powerful. She's not powerful in this. You know what? I'm gonna leeway this into Suki because yes, her makeup ates, but I don't like what they did to her characterization either. Because, you know, they took out Sokka's character flaw because, oh, it's not appropriate, yeah, go feminism. So they took, you know, the biggest feminist character, Suki, who explicitly says, like, I'm a girl, but I'm also a fighter, and beats the sexism out of Sokka. They took her and turned her into this googly-eyed thing. Like, she literally stares down Sokka changing until the point he's uncomfortable, and it was weird. I know I said I liked them hinting at the romance better. I liked the concept. I just don't think I liked delivery, seeing how they kind of watered down Suki. She felt watered down, I think is what I'm trying to say. I mean, she had her moments because we were told she's a Kyoshi warrior, but I felt like we were shown she was just all eyes on Sokka. She was all about Sokka, and it's like, what happened to her being a leader and being her own person? Like, it's so weird how much, like, oh my god, I'm so angry thinking about this. But also just going back to him being sexist to Katara too, like that like showed us what the world of the Water Tribe was like, or the culture of the Water Tribe was like, because they say in the beginning of the show, the men left to go fight, so Katara and Sokka, being the oldest, had to unfortunately grow up really fast and step up. And due to the patriarchal society, like, Sokka was the warrior. He had to protect the kids, so he had that immense struggle, I guess, that immense, what's the word I'm looking for? He had a lot on his shoulders, basically, and Katara was forced into this mothering role, to the point that she was even mothering her own brother, because that's what the Water Tribe cycle was. They overcome that at the end of the season, but like, in this show, Sokka wasn't overcoming anything. Katara just had to beat Pakku's ass, but then they ruined Pakku too. Like, that was weird, because I remember him accepting Katara as a waterbender and then teaching her, whereas this one, he didn't really do that until the end of the battle. It was weird. I don't like what they did with Azula in this. I think it was detrimental by introducing her this early. If you haven't seen the OG show, she doesn't get introduced until like the very last second of the season 1, because she's supposed to be a game changer. Not only is Fire Lord Ozai dangerous, not only is Prince Zuko dangerous, but so is Prince Zuko's sister. She's even more dangerous. So, as someone who does consider her a sympathetic villain, I think this show introduced her sympathetic side way too early. Because she doesn't feel like Azula. She feels like the OG season 1 Zuko. Like, just someone who's angry at her father. And this leads into how I feel about Ozai in this too. Azula in the OG show, she's very disciplined. She doesn't really have outbursts like Zuko does, but she was having in the live action. She's manipulative, she's conniving. She's often described as a Machiavellian villain, because to her, the end justifies the means. She will do anything she has to do to reach her end goal. She's this perfect child who always got praise from her father, but then in this one, she's supposed to be a bully, essentially, but in this one, she is bullied by Ozai, which I thought was strange. Azula and Zuko, they're essentially supposed to be polar opposites. They are basically products of abuse and what abuse can do to children. They could either do what it did to Zuko, where, like, yes, he was angry, but he overcame that and then chose not to repeat the cycle of abuse, or they can turn into Azula, where they do, and not only is now Azula a victim of abuse, but she is now a perpetrator of abuse. And I feel like the writers of the show missed that, and they also missed the fact that Zuko is supposed to be the scapegoat, while Azula is not. She's the favorite child that's praised, and instead they kind of weirdly made her a scapegoat as well. But it's also because, again, the spoon feeding, they were hitting us over the head with it. Like, they were trying to, because essentially by the end of the OG show, it's shown that Ozai, doesn't love her. He is using her as a war tool. And part of Azula knows that, and, she internalized that. But then this show is, hitting you over the head with it. Because, again, they don't trust the audience. They didn't explicitly say that in the OG show, but I got that when I watched it for the first time when I was 12. So why are you not trusting me at 26? They said they made this for the OG fans who are now in their 20s. Why are you not trusting us in our 20s when the creators trusted us when we were 8 to 10 years old? And I'm going to leeway this into my discussion of Ozai. I don't know what the hell they're doing with him too, but Ozai in the OG show, he's supposed to be the exact opposite of Aang. Aang is all that's good in this world, and he believes everyone can be redeemed. Whereas you have Ozai, who is supposed to be the epitome of evil. He doesn't give anyone a chance. And they're not, something about this was just so weird with their portrayal, because in the OG show, he unapologetically scars his own son, whereas in this version, you see him tear up as he does it, which I thought was bizarre. And there's a scene with him and Azula where Azula talks back to him. Now, if you've seen the OG show, when she talked back to him, your heart stops a little bit because you see the look on Ozai's face. He yells at her, and you know deep down if she kept going, he would have burned her face off the way he did Zuko's. Whereas in this one, she snaps at him and continues, and he just kind of smirks. And like I just feel like in the OG show this would have ended so much differently, and but I'm questioning it though, because I'm like, are you trying to show us he's manipulating her, or did you actually just get the characterization wrong? And Daniel Dae Kim said something weird in an interview. He was like, oh, I can't wait to explore Ozai and him going mad and him devolving into a madman. And it's like, no, you shouldn't be saying that. Azula's actress should be saying that. She's the one who starts as the golden child and has her downfall, not Ozai. What is happening here? Zhao is in this, but he's so forgettable. He doesn't feel as antagonistic or villainous as he does in the OG show. They somehow made him more forgettable than the OG show did. Like, so in the OG show, he is you do kind of forget about him as the seasons go on, but to me that's kind of ironic because he spends the first season going like, oh, I'm gonna be in the history books. I'll be the most well-known person in the Fire Nation fleet. And then the world forgets him. Whereas this one, just the writing accidentally made him forgettable. His death was pathetic, whereas I thought he kind of had a cool one in the OG show. I was so angry with what they did to Bumi. Talk about character assassination. If you've seen the OG show, he is so goofy, loves Aang, wasn't mad at him, whereas this one, he's not really goofy, and he's an asshole to Aang. Maybe it's because, again, they had to take out filler because people were mad at Aang for disappearing, but like, those characters showed up in filler episodes and they were, NPCs. We never saw them again. So I feel like that's what they were using Bumi to do because they couldn't do those filler characters. But it's like, Bumi of all people, and especially because Bumi is part of the White Lotus. So it's like, how are you gonna develop that? When Azula takes over Omashu, and then when the White Lotus is introduced. That's the other thing with the way these characters are done in this season. It's like there's certain plot points in season 2 and 3. How are you gonna handle those with the way you introduce these characters? Because it works for the OG show, because they were introduced totally differently. Y'all have a lot of work to do. And I know a lot of people, when it comes to talking about changes of characterization, they use the whole like realism argument. They're like, oh, it's not realistic, cartoons aren't realistic. And it's like, nobody's asking them to act cartoonish, to like overreact and make goofy faces. Nobody's asking for that, but I am asking for these characters to still have the same vibes as the OGs. If you're making this for the OG fans. Like, these characters in no way had unrealistic personalities. That's why so many people still relate to them even as adults. And yet you took them away and made them flat. I talked for so long my camera died. So here I am, one meal later. Had salad and hot Cheetos to calm down. But we're gonna get angry again. Okay, so my next point. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it's definitely something I found odd was the shoehorning of things from season 2 and 3 into this season. For example, we could talk about Azula. That's arguably shoehorning her into this because, like I said, her introduction later in the show, that changed the game. My complaint about her, not only was it, that long rant I already went on, but also at the same time, the writing of this character she felt like an Easter egg and not that she was supposed to be here. There was the whole Cave of Two Lovers thing. I don't know why they didn't wait until next season to do it. And not only that, but like, Cave of Two Lovers was used to progress Katara and Aang's love, future romance, but in this version, it was Katara and Sokka, brother and sister. Okay. I want to go back to the Leaves from the Vine scene because yes, that scene made me sad, but I'm gonna also comment about something about the writing here. It's like there was something else about the writing of the show that felt very much like they really relied on you having seen the OG show to know these characters, to know what they were saying, you know, when they were telling, not showing, and to also just have any sort of emotional impact. Because as much as I like the Leaves from the Vine scene, I'm really curious to know if that scene has the same emotional impact to newcomers. Because I would love to know if that scene really is well written, or if it relied on me having already known the song Leaves from the Vine. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because me personally, like, that's why I cried. That song always makes me cry. So when I heard the instrumental version of it, I teared up. Nothing else from that scene made me tear up. To me, as someone who has seen the OG, these didn't feel like well-written things. They just felt like, you know, Easter eggs, like teasers. The season feels like it's written like they were scared they weren't going to get a seasons 2 and 3, so they tried to fit in as many things as possible within this season. I mean, I kind of get it given Netflix's track record and how they're canceling shows left and right with no warning. But also, this is a critique towards Netflix as well, because I'm noticing with other streaming shows, they do this a lot, where season 1 their first seasons are very constrained and constricted because they're scared they're not going to get more seasons, so they're trying to solve so many issues within one season, and it's like nothing's left open anymore. You like watch a show from before streaming, seasons have open-ended questions because another season's coming to answer them, and like no one's doing that anymore. So yeah, that's a critique towards the show as well as an adaptation. Just so much shoehorning, because they were very much scared they weren't going to get future seasons, and they wanted to include as many things as possible. But like also because of all these Easter eggs, if they didn't include the Easter eggs and just had things develop organically, we could have gotten like a proper adaptation. All that time with Azula and Ozai that's not in the OG show and therefore really wasn't needed for this given my complaints, they could have spent that time developing different stuff. Another thing I didn't like was the change in lore. A lot of things got changed. For example, how Aang was found, which I spoke about already. Aang's characterization, it goes back to him like leaving and stuff, because in the OG show, he ran away from the Southern Air Temple because he didn't want to be Avatar. He ran away from his duties. The whole point of this show was a 12-year-old kid learning to be the Avatar. Whereas in this live action, he just stepped out for a breather. He had full intentions of going back to the Southern Air Temple, which I don't... Why are shows nowadays so scared to give their main characters flaws? Character flaws are what makes them relatable and what makes viewers have hope watching these characters overcome those flaws. It was important for Aang to be 12 and cowardly and learn from that. I don't like what they did with Kyoshi, like replacing Roku with Kyoshi. So in the OG show, Roku is the Avatar before Aang, and therefore he's the first Avatar Aang ever meets. He takes over Aang's body and destroys the temple. I understand why they made the choice to replace that with Kyoshi, given he was on Kyoshi Island, and again, the show couldn't really do filler episodes because they were too busy shoehorning everything else. So I understand why they replaced it with Kyoshi, and the scene was badass, but it was badass to me because I know who Kyoshi is, so it was cool watching her do that. But my thing is, not only would it have made sense to have Roku involved because, you know, he is the Avatar before Aang, so it would make sense for him to meet him first, but Roku's integral to the plot. So I also thought it was weird that in this show they decided that Aang can only speak to his past lives in temples, because I'm like, ooh, that's really fucking inconvenient, because in the OG show it's not like that. But not only that, at one point Avatar Kuruk, the waterbending avatar, the Water Tribe Avatar. At one point, the Water Tribe Avatar presents himself outside of the temple, so you just retcon your own retcon. In the OG show, Aang goes into the Avatar state and becomes this like huge like water monster, and that's what ends up defeating the Fire Nation fleet. Once it was done, he went back to normal. He was once again Aang. And then, in this one, there was like a whole thing where now that he wasn't Aang anymore, he's the ocean spirit. He's gonna just walk the waters for the rest of time. And I was like, what? That's not what happens. I thought that was weird. worried because it was fixed really fast. All Katara had to do was talk to him. So they were clearly going for something emotional, something to pull at your heartstrings, but it didn't work. And the biggest thing I've noticed is that Aang doesn't waterbend in this season. He doesn't attempt to learn. Like, the whole thing with the show is that each season he learns a new bending technique. Season 1 is water, 2 is earth, 3 is fire, hence the season name. And it's like, how rushed are they planning to make this for future seasons? I'm also wondering how they're gonna really make up for the actors aging, because if you watch the show, Aang sounds like a baby. Watch interviews of the actor now, and his voice has gotten deeper, he's gotten taller. He aged, which he obviously can't help. I'm not blaming him, but I'm just wondering what the writers are gonna do. Because the streets are saying that this show, that like the live action is going to take place within years. The OG takes place within months. But my thing with that is, if that's true, that's weird to me, because the one part of the lore the live action kept correct, is that Fire Lord Sozin used a comet to kill all the air nomads. That comet comes every 100 years, and it's now coming again, and it's what Fire Lord Ozai is going to use. And the Grand, she already established that it's been 100 years. Who knows what they're doing? Unless they're gonna pull like a series of unfortunate events where they made like a slapstick comment to make up for the baby aging. Because I would accept that. I mean, the show is supposed to be a fucking comedy. I do want to talk about the acting, because yes, a lot of these people fit the characters visually, but part of me was scared that was going to be too good to be true. And I have to say, I think acting-wise, mostly everyone did okay with what they were given. I say mostly everyone because, quite frankly, I did not like Aang's actor. A lot of people are like, he's an up-and-coming star. Personally, I think he was the worst, but he was also the youngest, so like, I'm fully aware he has room to grow, and hopefully he gets better with season 2 and 3. But even for him, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and also blame the writing and blame the directing, because the writing sucks. He has a lot of corny lines that probably even the best person can't even deliver. I thought some of the chemistry between these actors was off. Like, it truly does not feel like Katara, Sokka, and Aang are a trio of friends. Katara says it at one point during the portion of the Southern Air Temple where Aang finds out he really is the last airbender. She's like, we're besties, and I'm like, you're telling us, but you didn't show us. And I do not think her and the guy who plays Sokka have good like sibling chemistry, but I do love Zuko's actor. He's the breakout star to me. I did like Iroh's actor. Iroh's writing is one thing, but again, these people did fine with what they were given. Iroh's actor has such kind eyes though. Oh my goodness. And honestly, this is an unpopular opinion, but I really liked Azula's actor. I don't like Azula's writing. I don't like what they're doing with the character, but I can acknowledge that her actress is eating up what's given to her. And Suki's actress is fucking gorgeous. She did okay too. It's hard to comment because she doesn't have a lot of screen time compared to everyone else, but her actress is gorgeous. I feel like that's the one thing everyone can agree on, how pretty she is. Will I watch season 2? Yes, because I'm a nosy bitch, but also because I am interested to see how Toph is portrayed. If I don't like season 2, I'm not moving on to season 3. But I am intrigued and see how they portray Toph. I'm super worried given how all the other characters were treated. I'm interested to see how they portray Mai and Ty Lee. Like, yes, they were in this season, but they didn't really do anything. They were just there to let the audience know Azula has friends. I think they look the parts. I'm just wondering if they can act them. And I'm wondering if they're gonna like fix these issues that I have, like the rushed pacing, the horrendous exposition. So does this validate my feelings on live action adaptations of cartoons? Quite frankly, yes. I don't think they're needed. And I'm seeing arguments saying like, well, it's not supposed to be a 1v1 adaptation, and I get that, and I've explained my reasoning ad nauseum why I still don't like this, but it's also just a great argument for why we shouldn't have it. Because, you know, everyone was saying when this was first coming out, they're like, well, if it was a 1v1 adaptation, you would say, what's the point, because it's boring, but now you're also complaining because it's not the same. What do you guys want? And y'all, I wanted a secret third thing, which was no live action adaptation and new material. When are we getting new things? Well, as of saying that, I know a few things have been announced, but like, what is with Hollywood redoing shit? It gives them money, apparently, because apparently Netflix is banking on this being their next Stranger Things. But I swear to God, guys, I know I went hard with this, and this is a very long review. It should be its own video. But I did truly want to like this because, you know, I love all the actors, like, as people. I watched interviews, and it's so funny. I know they can act the part because they all act like the characters in interviews. It's so weird. They don't act like, and it's not their fault, again, it's the writing. They don't act like the characters in the show, but they act like them in interviews. Like the girl who plays Katara, her name is Gaio. She is Katara if you watch these interviews. Ian Osley, who plays Sokka, he is Sokka. He's hilarious. The girl who plays, granted she's not evil like Azula, but the girl who plays Azula, Elizabeth Yu, she is a smart aleck, she is witty, she has clapbacks, she, like, is a redeemed Azula, I guess you could say. Like, they fit the character so well. So what happened with the writing team? I know an article was going around how the studio made them change things and blah blah blah. So I know some guy who's like really popular in the live action sphere, he was saying, he's like, you owe them an apology. And it's like, I'm not apologizing for jack shit. I am not coddling these fucking studios because they're doing all that is why studios think they can produce mediocrity for us. It is upsetting. It is truly upsetting that this is like the face of Avatar right now. But that being said, I do hope the actors are okay. And I'm saying that because the internet's the internet, and I have seen people being very, very mean, particularly to Azula and Mei's actresses because they're not stick-thin people. So there's a lot of fat shaming going around those two actresses. So them specifically, I hope they're okay, but I just hope everyone's okay. My biggest worry for the show was no matter how it turned out was how people were going to treat them. Just because every time kid actors are involved in projects this big, I always think back about the kid who played Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace and how he got treated, and I'm always so scared we're gonna have a repeat of that. But yeah, that is the end of my 3.5 pages of notes. Basically, I'm disappointed with how this turned out, but I am not in the least bit surprised. Okay, I think it's time to move on because I still have 3 other shows to talk about. So I know I said in another video I was gonna put this show on pause so I can watch like Oscar movies and all that, but I was able to watch a few episodes here and there, so I ended up finishing season 4 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. This has been my favorite season so far just because we truly are digging deeper into Anakin's like evilness. There was one arc in here where I swear to God you could see glimpses of him from what he turns into in Revenge of the Sith. Because I said in another video, one of the reasons I love this show so much is because, like, yes, in the movies, Anakin's, like, evilness was always there, but I feel like the show is truly fleshing it out. I can't go into detail because I don't want to spoil the earlier seasons, but something I also really liked about this season is Ventress's planet. I really liked that whole thing with, like, the Witch Clan and, like, Darth Maul's people. And there's one character design in here that I loved a lot, but I can't say because, again, spoilers. But I had a lot of fun with this season. I am pausing the show in March to catch up on other stuff. I will pick up again in April. One of the shows I started in February, and it's currently airing now, it's ongoing. It's an anime called Solo Leveling. This anime takes place in a world where dungeons appeared and people started having awakenings. They were given these powers, and they're giving specific rankings that you can't change. So if you're a C level, you cannot move up to B level. And it's basically like a video game in real life. Our main character is the worst ever hunter. He's not only an E rank, but like the weakest E rank. And one day he goes into this horrendous dungeon, and then he basically has a second awakening, and he's now stronger than ever. He has a system follow him around, and it gives him tasks to make him stronger. It gives him objectives, and he's trying to keep it a secret from people. Truthfully, to me, this story is kind of just whatever. I remember everyone, it was all the rage when they first announced this, and everyone in the comments on Crunchyroll was like, peak leveling, and meanwhile I'm sitting here like, is Peak in the room with us right now? Because I was not enjoying this. It took me until, because the Philly Discord talks about it a lot, and I kind of want to be in the know because of, you know, FOMO. It took me until episode 6 to finally decide, like, yes, I will finish out the season. Not only because I was starting to like what I was seeing, but also because, I mean, if I'm halfway through the season, I might as well finish it. I'm just really not impressed with what I'm seeing, because I feel like the main character is just too overpowered. And it's also, this whole thing's also giving me Sword Art Online vibes, and I did not like Sword Art Online. I will finish out the season though. It's going to be 12 episodes, and I just watched episode 9 today. I did really like a song. There's a song in episode 6 that goes so fucking hard, and there's a piece of music in episode 9 that goes really hard too. So I'll finish it out. But like, as of now, if this never gets a season 2, I won't be complaining. And honestly, it's a shame because I have volume 1 and I bought it. I wasted money on it because now I don't like what I'm seeing and I don't want to continue it. Girl, I'm so tired. So luckily I only have one more thing to talk about. It's another anime that was recommended to me by a friend, and also a bunch of people in the Philadelphia Discord talk about it, and that is Undead Unluck. This anime takes place in a world where people tend to get these weird powers. Our main character, whose name I can't remember, is it Fuko? I can't remember. I'm going to call her female lead. Our female lead has a power called Unluck, which means if you touch her, you die. She meets a guy named Andy whose power is Undead. That means he can't die. So he's using her in order to find the best death possible. And I will say, I'm such a negative Nancy when it comes to TV shows this month. This one was difficult for me to get into at first. That's because in the first couple episodes, the main female character is just constantly screaming. Like, it's in character. It's very clear to me that she's supposed to be this very anxious being. She was very sheltered growing up, and it's Andy who's breaking her out of her shell, but it was just annoying to listen to. Another reason I wasn't liking it is because I just wasn't liking the jokes. A lot of jokes in the first couple episodes were about like borderline sexually assaulting her. So I was not really about that, and at first I couldn't believe this was recommended to me. But Andy's really hot, so I kept going. It did kind of pay off because a new group was introduced. They're called the Union. Once they were introduced, and like I got more of a feel for the world, that's when I actually kind of started liking this. It's so weird because like there's no world building, but also at the same time there's so much and I can't really keep up. It's all over the place, but I can't stop watching. It's because these characters, it feels like they're essentially playing a game. Like, they have these missions and they get rewards, they get punishments, and they essentially like create the world and control the world. And I do think it's an interesting concept that these people with powers have to kill people like them in order to save the world or destroy the world, whatever the end game is. It's also a lot funnier now that the style of jokes changed because Andy and the main character, the main female lead, they come to like a sort of agreement. So the style of jokes changed, and also Andy's like more of a gentleman now. So not only is he hot, but he's a gentleman. And he's secured himself, and I love that for him. So yeah, this show's cool. It's actively airing. I am trying to catch up. Now that Oscar season's over, I'm not going to be watching movies all the time. So I'm going to try to catch up to this, then I'm going to try to catch up to Shogun, and then I can go back to Clone Wars. And that being said, that is it for this video. I am fucking exhausted and need to go to bed like right now because it is daylight savings time, and I want to make sure I get more than 4 hours of sleep. So let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really sorry for how long this was and how much I talked about the Avatar live action when I don't usually talk about things for that long. But I had a lot of feelings. Actually, I would highly recommend checking out Hannah over at A Clockwork Readers video because she goes into depth episode by episode, and she's a lot more articulate than I am. She says at one point that we have been conditioned to accept mediocrity, and I was like, ooh, I felt that one. That was a stab. And girl, and she's right. She needs to speak her piece. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. And without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao, tutti.